evening, members. I'd like to invite my chaplain, to lead the council in prayer.
So we pray. Lord, the God of righteousness and truth, grant to our King and his government, central and local, to members of this council and all in positions of responsibility, the guidance of your Spirit. May they never lead the people wrongly through love of power, desire to please, or unworthy ideals, but laying aside all private interests and prejudices, keep in mind their responsibility to seek to improve the condition of all residents of this borough. So may your kingdom come and your name be hallowed. Amen.
Amen.
And if you care to do so, would you join with me in the saying of the Lord's Prayer? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, for ever and ever. Amen.
Could you all remain standing, please, for the national anthem?
Sorry, I'm going to have to do it a cappella today because my phone was playing up. So, sorry. God save our gracious King, long live our noble King. God save the King. Send him victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over us. God save the King. Thank you.
Thank you, Ocean. Would you all like to be seated? Apologies for absence. I have received apologies from Councillor Matthew Cook. Kat Eccles, are there any further apologies for absence? Okay, noted, thank you.
Councillor Ian Sandal, Councillor Tom Russon and Councillor Peter Dobb.
Okay, thank you. Any prior declarations of interest made under the Members' Code of Conduct have been published online. I now invite members to declare any additional interests. Okay, thank you. I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of October 2025 be confirmed as correct records and signed. Can the council agree? That is carried. It's my sad duty to report on the recent deaths of former Councillor Ken Turner and the former Mayoress Hilary Miller. Ken Turner represented Hayley Green and Cradley South between 2002 and 2015. Hilary Miller served as Deputy Mayoress in 2009 to 2010 and Mayoress in 2010 to 2011. Can the council please observe a minute's silence as a mark of respect to their memory? Can I now invite members to pay tributes to Hilary and Councillor Harley?
Keep this very brief. Hilary was the perfect partner for Pete Miller when he did his year as mayor. Perfect mayoress, attended the vast majority of functions with Peter, and really quite humbling to attend her funeral last week, which I know you were in attendance as well as other members around the chamber. It was a lovely service. The family did her absolutely proud, and Pete can be proud of, you know, what they put on for her last week. And obviously our thoughts in the chamber go to Peter and his two sons and grandchildren. Reverend Ken Turner, I know he wouldn't mind me saying this, but Ken was Marmite. You either loved him or you didn't. I always classed Ken as a lovable rogue. And one of the first decisions I took when I became leader of the opposition in 2013 was to put Ken on the front bench as our regeneration spokesperson, because Ken certainly knew regeneration. He knew how to talk about it. He knew how to scrutinise reports and go out there and fight for the best for this borough as regards regeneration activity. Obviously, he moved up north and continued his political career up near Pendle, near Blackpool. So to build a political career here in Dudley and then move and rebuild that career again just goes to show that, you know, Ken Turner had that talent and that ability to rise to the very top. And he'll be sorely missed. And my condolences to Hazel and to Adrian and other members of the Turner family.
Thank you, Councillor Harley. Can I call on Councillor Stanley, please? David Stanley.
Mr. Mayor, a little bit of an history lesson, first of all, like I normally start with. I'm being very careful not to give my age away on this occasion. I first met Hilary for the very first time in King Swinford in the 1960s. I was working for George Mason's at the time. Peter and Hilary came and dare I say the word West Bromwich and moved into King Swinford. And during that course of that time, she was given a job at George Mason's along with myself. A duties in those days, and I used to pull a leg over it, she was classed as miscellaneous duties. So I got to know them both, Peter and Hilary, very, very well indeed, especially when they moved into Barney Close. Over the years, I got to know them even better. And going back a little bit further, Mr. Mayor, to the days of the old Dudley West Conservative constituency, when we all fought very hard for the election of John Blackburn, who later became the MP. She loved organising things, there's no question about it. She was very, very good at that and arranging parties. And I know personally myself how much she enjoyed being the mayoress and what it meant to her, which was a great deal. Sadly, of course, dementia set in, and when that happens, it just not only affects the person, but the whole of the family. And then for quite a number of years after, I know Peter found it exceptionally difficult of attending council meetings, doing all sorts of things, when he got no one to look after his dear wife. It is an awful, and I use the word disease, which not only affects the person suffering with it, but all the family around him at the same time. Like yourself, Mr. Mayor, I attended the funeral service, quite an interesting one. We had a very good picture show, a very good life history, and just shows the love and care that the family put into the sort of Hilary. At this stage, Mr. Mayor, I offer my deepest condolences to her husband and the family at these very, very, very sad times. And Mr. Mayor, just briefly, following on from the leader, as far as former Councillor Ken Turner was concerned, I got on with him exceptionally well, which is unusual in this council chamber, but I do try to do my best to get on with all people, all elected members of either side. But there's one thing that I shall always remember him for, and that is great passion for Hunting Tree Park. We received some money quite a number of years ago to set up these pubs and also the gym facilities within the parks. There was 5 of them. Hunton-Tree was one of them. And it became like a caretaker to it over a period of time, looking after it, making certain everything was running as it should do down there. At that, Mr Mayor, and what's been said by the leader, I will actually conclude by offering my very deepest sympathy to Ken Turner's family. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stanley. Can I now call on Councillor Hilary Bills, please?
The Mayor. Yes, Hillary and Hillary. When I first was elected in 2012, Councillor Miller and I were part of the corporate parenting board, and we used to visit all the institutions that we were running, and he and I would go out and visit and all the Sure Start centres as well, and he'd always say, but you write the report. And I say, all right, I'll write the report. But if anything was going wrong or he wanted to have fun, he'd just go, oh, it's just Hillary's, isn't it? You know, Hillary and I used to take a bit of ribbing from him. But I always found Hillary to be a very friendly, lovely person. And the last time I spoke to Councillor Miller he was actually telling me how he had been looking after his wife and just how tender he was, and he understood, and how much he dedicated his life to it. So I send my condolences to the family. And then you come to Councillor Turner. How do I describe Councillor Turner? Well, with him, you either loved him or you hated him. You could not be indifferent. It was absolutely impossible to be indifferent. The last time that gavel was used up there, and I'm the one who tells the story, it was against me, but it was because of what Councillor Turner did. I'd only been a councillor for a couple of months, and I was driving home from Sainsbury's in Blackheath, and I went past where Age UK used to be. So I nipped in and said, hello, everybody. How are you? I'm your new councillor, like you do. I then got this awful email. How dare you visit? And I thought, you cheeky monkey speaking to me like that. I was sitting over there. I can remember it vividly. And so with the next council meeting, I put my hand up to ask a question. And those of you who were there will remember I said, before I ask my question, do I have permission from Councillor Turner to ask this question? And I started to read the email. And the mayor at the time was Alan Finch. And he said, no, you can't, out of order. I thought, I haven't done the best sentence in this email. So I did it. And then I wouldn't sit down, so he used the gavel against me. Personally, I think Rule 20.2 is the best. When the mayor stands, everybody has to sit down. But anyway, that's what he did. So that was Ken, the most infuriating person you can imagine. On the other hand, you've taken the words out of my mouth. Hunting-Tree, he lived about 3 or 4 houses down from it, but you could always find him there. He was passionate about it. And he was passionate about everybody in Hayley Green and Cradley South. And I always remember when we did training for Universal Credit when it came in. It was about 2014, 15. I was sitting with him and Hazel. And anyway, they explained it to us. And before I could say, so what we're going to do is take those in society who are least likely to be online, to have all their money, not their rent paid, and then expected them to get on with it. I couldn't get on to say that because he said it first. He didn't care about party politics most of the time. He did what he thought was right for the people where he was. So to all the Turner family, I send you my condolences. And he's a right character. And I have to say, there are very few characters left in politics these days, but he was one of them. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bills. Call on Leader of the Opposition Party, Adam Aston.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, and thank you. I know I speak on behalf of the Labour Group when I say how very sorry we are to hear of the deaths of both Ken Turner and Hillary Miller. Many newer members of this council won't have had the chance to meet former Councillor Turner, but he certainly made an impression on those of us who did. When Councillor Cowell and I were first elected, we landed on the Taxi Licensing Committee alongside Ken and our late comrade, Councillor Richard Boddy. Now, to say Ken and Richard were approached things from opposite ends of the spectrum would be an understatement. This meant that life on the Taxi Licensing Committee could never be called boring. Whilst Richard would often argue for a gentle warning and a second chance for taxi drivers who had fallen foul of the law, Ken was more inclined to revoke everyone's licence on the spot. I think he'd been a hanging judge in a previous life. What followed was a monthly clash of the titans, where each would vehemently argue their point of view, and so consequently meetings would go on for hours and hours and hours. Sometimes good-natured, passionate, but ultimately unforgettable. Ken's politics were different from ours on this side of the chamber, but he was a dedicated local councillor, a champion for Hayley Green and Cradley South, and passionate about Hales Owen, a place he always referred to as the jewel in Dudley's crown. Our sincere condolences and best wishes to Ken's family at this difficult time. Hilary Miller was a wonderful mayoress of our great borough. Like many mayoresses and consorts, she was thrust into the public eye, but rose to the occasion with grace and good humour. Following their mayoral year, she and Peter continued to support the work of successive mayors, irrespective of political colour, and regularly attended civic events together. She was unfailingly friendly, good-natured, and brought warmth and kindness wherever she went. Her presence always lifted the room, and she will be deeply missed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Aston. Can I now call on Councillor Pete Lowe?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And just following on from the previous speakers, our deepest condolences, firstly to Peter Miller and the family with the sad passing of Hilary. Many of us in this chamber will recollect her year when she had greatness thrust upon her, as Adam has outlined, when she became the mayoress. But I'm sure what many of us within this chamber will also remember is the care and the dedication of Hilary's husband, Peter, under increasingly difficult circumstances over many years. Many of us in positions of influence talk about the workload, but to be able to be deputy leader of this council whilst dealing with a loved one with such a terrible disease, I think is an absolute credit to the man. Ken Turner, I think Patrick doesn't go for, I think you're being unfair to Marmite, to be perfectly honest. Many of us will remember Ken Turner either fondly, but we will certainly remember him. When I first came onto the council, it was before the cabinet system. He was chair of Regeneration, and my first couple of years found myself on that committee. And I think it's fair to say that Ken didn't always agree with Ken, let alone members of the political party that he chose to be a member of at that given time. One of my memories of Ken is actually probably the shortest living cabinet member that this council has ever had. He actually sat in that chair, and then the Conservative Party themselves proposed an amendment before the cabinet was ordained to remove Ken Turner from the cabinet. I remember spending a couple of days, Mr. Mayor, or a couple of evenings around the Turner household. And I think it's fair to say that irrespective of the disagreements we would have in this council chamber, that was insignificant compared to the disagreements of Adrian and Hazel Turner with Ken Turner on many occasions. He was one of his own. Ken will be sorely missed because I think as the point was raised, he was a maverick and an individual. As Adam mentioned the reference with regard to Richard Boddy, I'd actually made a comment down here to say Richard's Homer Hill was Ken Turner's Hunting Tree Gardens. He was one of those issues that came into the council chamber that became a personal crusade through both of them. And I think what that demonstrates, Mr. Mayor, is that commitment to community politics, which actually is a greater pull to many than the party political system. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Now, I have to mention the Christmas light switch on in Dudley Town Centre on the 6th of December. I believe this sets off at 4:30, something like that anyway. and also to mention the Christmas lights switch on in Wordsley. Also, I think at 4:15 is that one, Kelly? Right. I've just changed your name for you. So yeah, both events there. One Wordsley, great, yeah, and Dudley as well, the switch on lights there, which I'll be attending myself. And also now we'd like to congratulate Councillor Hamlet for the birth of his son, Freddie, I believe, last week. So congratulations, Luke. Great name, Freddie. Love that. Right, reports and... oh, yes, sorry, yeah, I've got to mention the Civic Carol concert being held on the 17th of December at Holy Trinity Church, Amblecote. That's mine and Councillor Bradley's and Councillor Razak's ward. You're all welcome to attend. I shan't be singing, so you're safe there. And Father Paul will be doing all the...
Well, he died a couple of years ago, Mr. Mayor.
Well, sorry about that, Father. But I'm making a lot of mistakes, aren't I? But you know what I mean. Lovely, that's great. And thanks for taking that on for us, Father. So now reports and recommendations, 2025-26 Better Care Fund Partnership Agreement. I call on the leader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I move that the decisions of the Cabinet be noted.
Members of the council, I move that the decision of the Cabinet be noted. Is there a seconder?
Yes, formally seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Councillor Baton? Yes. Are there any speakers on this item? Councillor Baton, I think you're bated breath there.
Waiting with bated breath, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, I welcome the paper, and I have had a chance to speak to the Director of Adult Social Care today about the delays in this. And I think the thing I just want to ensure that we have from Council is that we have absolute assurance that we can align our decision making with deadline dates. And it's not just for this particular paper. You know, for something like this where we know when the deadline dates are, we shouldn't need to use the Mayor's exceptional powers for that. But if we can make sure for the future, and I have Council's assurance that we will align our decision making with deadline dates so that we don't risk any reputational damage to the Council. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Baton. After I call on the leader to reply, Councillor Harley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the comments from Councillor Baton are noted, and I'm sure that the Cabinet Member and Director of Adult Social Care can obviously liaise with opposition leaders and make sure that that happens.
Okay, all agreed? That is carried. Appointment of Director of Adult Social Care, I call on the leader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of the Council, I move that the recommendation of the Appointments Committee to appoint Emma Matthews to the post of Director of Adult Social Care be approved and adopted. And in putting this forward, Mr. Mayor, we have gone through a really extensive restructure. And I think some of the appointments have really, I think, massively improved the quality of leadership on our senior team. But it is pleasing, just like it was with Jim Deakin, to actually see one of our homegrown talents actually promoted. And the job that she has done, picking up that brief at a very difficult time when this authority was facing a 114, like a lot of other councils, because of the growing cost of adult social care. She took that role on and totally transformed that department. And I think she deserves the full credit. And this post is, you know, fully deserved. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a seconder?
Yes, formally seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Are there any speakers on this item? No? Okay. I call on the leader to reply. Okay, thank you. All agreed? That is carried. Political balance of the council and composition of committees. Political balance of the council and composition of committees. I shall call on the leader.
Mr Mayor, members of the council, I move 1, that the council endorse the revisions to the composition and membership of committees in accordance with the relevant political balance requirements of section 15 and 16 of the Local Government and Housing Act 1989. And 2, that Councillor Alan Taylor be appointed as chair of the Licensing and Safety Committee in place of Councillor James Clinton. And 3, that Councillor Jeff Hill be appointed as vice chair of the Standards Committee in place of Councillor Jason Thorne. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harley. Is there a seconder?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Are there any speakers on this item? I think we've got Councillor Pete Lowe, yeah?
Mayor, I'd just like to propose an amendment under points 2 and 3, if possible, that we delete Councillor Alan Taylor and replace with Councillor Steve Edwards. And under point 3, we replace Councillor Jeff Hill with Councillor Carl Denning. Thank you.
I call on the leader to reply.
He needs a second.
Oh, you need a seconder on that one?
Formally seconded, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. All agreed?
No, we have to vote on the amendment.
Oh, now we have to go to the, yeah, sorry.
We vote on the amendment.
Okay, we vote on the amendment now.
There's no debate. We're voting on the amendment.
Okay.
Yeah. Would you like to speak? Council, we're now voting on the amendment, so if you'd like to press your buttons, thank you.
On the amendment.
Okay,
It's defeated.
that's defeated.
Now we vote on the original.
Now we vote on the original.
Council, can you now vote on the original motion? Thank you.
That is carried. Right, result of feasible study, Parish Council for Cradley. Result of feasible study, Parish Council for Cradley. I call on the leader.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, members of the council, I move that the recommendation in the report be approved and adopted. Thank you.
Is there a seconder?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Are there any speakers on this item?
Councillor Kieran Casey.
I have Councillor Kieran Casey.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Well, I could not get up and speak on this item, particularly as I know Councillor Priest values my opinion on this subject, I think. But I think we can safely say, Mr Mayor, that this is going to be the last time we're discussing this issue, given residents in Cradley have rightly given this the punishment it deserved. I think what's really disappointing, though, is that despite everything we've heard in the press, from the Lib Dems, from the controlling group as well, is the one thing we haven't heard is an apology. No apology from the controlling group for allowing this ridiculous idea to be put in their budget in the first place, potentially wasting £75,000 worth of taxpayers' money. No apology from the Lib Dems for suggesting this in the first place and putting it into the budget, when in reality they could have put anything else into the budget for residents in Cradley and chosen to stand up for them on a range of services that £75,000 could have gone a long way to support. And instead, actually, we've seen a doubling down by the Lib Dems in Dudley about why this was so important, why they still felt it was a good idea and it was worth asking the question. And in the end, it only ended up costing nearly £10,000, as if that is something of a win. But residents will rightly see straight through that, because in the end, both were willing to spend that £75,000 if it was necessary. And Councillor Priest probably rightly asked the question, and so do others, about why I keep going on about this and why it's so frustrating. But I'll tell you why it's so frustrating. The reason is that this all takes place in the context and at a time when colleagues around this council are constantly being told by this council and by residents that basic services aren't being delivered in the way that they want it to be done. You can't get litter bins installed because we can't empty the ones we've already got, and grip bins are now disappearing from streets across the borough just as we enter the coldest time of the year. So, as well as many more things. So that's why it's so frustrating, and that's why I think it's important to keep talking about this. So I'll say it again as I did at the start. I think it's completely disgraceful. I'm really happy that residents in Cradley have rejected this, but I hope they'll remember that when it comes to it, that this was an idea that was put on the table instead of something meaningful for local residents in their local area. And the reason I wanted to come in early on this debate, Mr. Mayor, actually, is because I'll finish by asking whether anyone from the Lib Dems or from the controlling group will get up tonight and take the chance to apologise for what is essentially another in a long line of embarrassing ways to waste taxpayers' money. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And call on Councillor Ali.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are asked tonight to note the results of this £75,000 feasibility study and whether it's 10,000. A Lib Dem Conservative project that was doomed from the start. Its conclusion could have been predicted before a single pound or penny was spent. We said so, and we said it loudly on this side, repeatedly, and as usual, we were ignored. The study confirms what the people of Cradley already knew, what Labour councillors on this side already knew, and what basic common sense made obvious. There was no appetite for this study. There was no demand for it. There was no justification for creating a town or parish council. Mr. Mayor, this is one of the clearest and most avoidable examples of public money being wasted. A response rate of just 13% speaks for itself. Residents did not see this as a priority, and those who did respond, their message could not have been clearer and louder. More than 82% said no. Only 17% supported the idea. This isn't borderline, Mr. Mayor. This is near unanimous. And in every polling district, the result was the same. Rejection after rejection after rejection. People did not want it, did not ask for it, and did not support it. They said that the council tax was already too high, that people were struggling with the cost of living crisis, and that this proposal would only add another layer of bureaucracy. Residents saw right through the Lib Dem proposal for what it was. More cost, more bureaucracy, more complexity, and no clear benefit whatsoever. So, Mr. Mayor, the feasibility study has told us nothing we didn't already know. And now we are instructed to simply note the report. We will note it, but not quietly. We will note it with a warning. We will note it as a lesson. And above all, Mr. Mayor, we will note it as a reminder of what happens when political self-promotion overrides public reality. Residents expect us to use their money wisely, not to bankroll costly Lib Dem experiments that exist only in the imagination of their political leadership. They expect us to focus on real needs, not to layer a council on top of another council. they expect accountability for every pound spent, not a shrug and a request to move on. Mr. Mayor, does the leader agree that the people of Cradley and our borough deserve better? And can he confirm whether the money spent on this feasibility study was justified? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. Can I call on Councillor Kesey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear. What an extraordinary waste of time, effort, and most importantly, public money this entire saga has been. Let's be clear. This so-called feasibility study into creating a parish council in Cradley was never about community empowerment. It was never about strengthening local democracy. It was a vanity project, pure and simple, dreamed up by the Liberal Democrats and propped up by their Conservative chums. Desperate to stay in control and willing to do or say anything to get the Lib Dems on side. They together have conspired to burn through thousands and thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money on something residents never wanted. 1,045 residents said no. Just 217 said yes. That isn't a narrow defeat. That isn't a close call. It's a humiliating landslide rejection of this ridiculous, self-indulgent twaddle. Now, if you remember, I stood here back in February and offered the Liberal Democrats a way out, a dignified exit, a chance to change course and admit what was obvious even then, that Cradley residents had no appetite for this. But they ploughed on, convinced that they somehow knew better than the very people they claimed to represent. Well, the residents of Cradley have spoken, and they've spoken loudly. The Liberal Democrats should be ashamed. Not politically embarrassed, ashamed. Ashamed for wasting public money, ashamed for pushing ahead with a vanity project that has backfired spectacularly. And the Conservatives who backed them should be just as ashamed, because this wasn't just a Lib Dem folly, it was a joint effort, a partnership in poor judgment, a shared failure. Let's be honest, if the three Liberal Democrat Cradley and Woollerscote councillors truly respected the voters of Cradley, if they had even a shred of accountability, they would all be resigning this evening and doing so with an apology. But we all know that isn't going to happen. So instead, the voters will do that job for them. And in May 2026, 2027 and 2028, when their seats come up one by one, the people of Cradley will remember exactly who wasted their money, ignored the warnings and pushed ahead with a scheme that was overwhelmingly rejected. Tonight's report confirms what we knew all along. This was a failure, a pointless, expensive, self-serving failure. Cradley deserves better, and they will get better, because in the end, voters always correct the mistakes their councillors refuse to. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kesey. Can I now call on Councillor Quayam? I hope I pronounced that right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report before us tonight is yet another example of this Conservative administration's financial irresponsibility. At a time when this authority was on the edge of bankruptcy, at a time when millions were being cut from frontline services, at a time when workers feared for their jobs and residents feared for the services they rely on every single day, this Conservative administration chose to bribe the Lib Dems with 75,000 of public money for a vanity project, a project that 82.6% of the public have now rejected with a loud and clear message. No to higher council tax, no to more red tape, no to wasting public money. This politically driven obsession of the Lib Dems, rejected by the people, must be called out for what it is: blatant mismanagement of public money. And yet, when the voluntary and community sector was being cut, when the welfare rights team was being cut, when youth services were being cut, this Conservative administration propped up a Lib Dem project that nobody asked for, a project built on self-promotion and political theatre, not on residents and not on services residents rely on. This is a betrayal of the trust that residents place in us to safeguard their money and their services. Mr Mayor, the results of this feasibility study deliver a damning verdict on the political priorities and financial judgment of this Conservative administration, and to those who push this agenda, the Lib Dems. You owe this chamber and you owe the people of Crayley an apology for wasting their money. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I now call on Councillor McGill?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I want to take us back to this time last year when the Conservatives reached out to the Lib Dems for support of their £42 million of cuts. The Lib Dems had the chance to ask for anything. Funding for our parks? No. Improvements to the roads? No. Investment to tackle antisocial behaviour, maybe? No. Instead, they chose to sell out just for £75,000 on a feasibility study, the very outcome of which this side of the chamber had already told them free of charge. But Mr Mayor, since it's the season of giving, let me offer my colleagues some advice, and also free of charge. When the leader comes to you again, asking for your support, don't waste the opportunity. Ask for something your residents actually want.
Thank you, Councillor McGill. Councillor Priest?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you everyone for their well thought out contributions tonight. Obviously, this is a result that's personally disappointing for me, but I do take issue with this idea that the Lib Dems would propose something that's never been done before in Dudley and it's nothing more than a vanity project. We too knew what the chances of this passing were, that it was a bit big and difficult task to, a big ask to make. But we face a situation across the country, in this local authority and local authorities up and down the country, of dire financial need. And you are absolutely right that those decisions could have been made on a one-year basis to try and force through something in a budget that will just be cut again further down the line, as we've seen with libraries and leisure centres and community centres and green care. The idea behind the town council was a simple one. It was a way to insulate communities against that managed decline that we've had from, not just from administrations in this council, but because of the lack of funding that all councils across the country get from Westminster, that councils are forced to become professionalised service cutters. This was a way to try and stop that. Now, I hear the call for apologies, but in the list of council waste, an investigation into a way that we can better manage our services to protect them in the future, to keep libraries open, to keep leisure centres open, to me is not a waste. When we've got trips to the south of France, when we've got legal fees on councillor bickering, there are bigger wastes that have been made, and I have heard no apology on either side for those. So I will not apologise for looking for another way to manage our services and protect services in Cradley. I believe in the principle of localism, that decisions are best made by the people who are affected by those decisions, that a town council takes power away from disattached officers and councillors here and brings it to local people. It's why I support parish councils and town councils. It's why I support things like Halsowen bid and the soon-to-be Stourbridge bid. However, I do recognise the result of this survey. I think if we have a choice here, we can either continue with that constant repetition of finding new ways to cut services, or we can get creative about how we protect them. It sounds like tonight that Reform and Labour councillors have accepted that the future of this local authority is to manage the decline. Well, I believe that while I accept the results of this survey, and it isn't something that we'll pursue further, if we want to get serious about protecting local services, we have to get creative about the way in which we do it. The Liberal Democrats will not accept more of the same decline that the Labour Party and Reform are endorsing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Priest. I now call on Councillor Phipps.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm not really rising to comment on any of the arguments put forward during the debate this evening, but anybody please correct me if I'm wrong, I think the only two people that live in the Cradley area in this chamber are me and Councillor Thorne that was able to take part in this survey. We both went out, although not necessarily on the same side, it seemed at the time, but we both went out campaigning. We both went out campaigning against the parish council because we didn't believe it was right. As residents of that area, we made our voices heard. And we do have, we are both in the same ward, aren't we? We do have 3 elected councillors who we can go to the ballot box and we can hold accountable for their decisions as their local councillors. I want to offer advice to people in the chamber about the way you talk about other people's communities, because I live in Cradley and I've lived in Cradley all my life, and it's not a very good look, and I don't feel very good listening to people who don't represent Cradley and don't come from Cradley, assuming before this survey even went out what you think the people of Cradley think like and what you think the people of Cradley want. We do have elected councillors and we're very good at holding them to account. You guys can hold us to account as the administration, and like I say, I'm not commenting on the decision, I'm not commenting on the money that was made. I'm sure the leader of the council will do that. But my honest advice to people is, please don't talk about other people's communities that you don't really know much about in the way you have tonight, because actually we have got a voice, we've made that voice heard. It doesn't sound good to people in other areas to start saying and assuming things in the way that has been done throughout this entire issue. I say that honestly as a friend to everybody in this chamber. I just think it has been slightly patronising to us that live in Cradley. We're able to take control of our own affairs, and don't get me wrong, I'll be voting the right way anyway. I don't know about Councillor Thorne, but I'll be voting the right way when it comes in May in order to make my voice heard when it comes to it. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Phipps. I now call on the leader, Patrick Harley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It really is hysterical and hypocritical of the party opposite to stand up and say, can you apologise for this, can you apologise for that? After the farce of last week's budget, where growth, jobs, investment, all down. Now, that could have been a budget for growth, jobs and investment. Instead, Mr. Mayor, it was a budget to pacify Labour MPs on those backbenches, to keep Rachel from Accounts and Sakia in their roles for a little bit longer. That's what it was about. Anybody should be apologising, it's the Labour Party, not anyone else in this chamber. Reference grit bins. Members really need to look up and research before they get up and pass comments. Some of those grit bins haven't been filled for 5 years. The grit in there has been there for 5 years in Suffolk. So clearly, people are not using them. So you talk about wasting money. That is just pouring money down the drain if we continue to keep them in situ. Now, to be fair to the Liberal Democrats, they actually did the right thing last year's budget. The parish council was one of their priorities, but they also asked for a lot of tarmac to be laid in Cradley, and believe me, it has been. So they did ask for other things to be done in their ward. But they were grown up, mature, got round the table and said, these are our priorities. We'll help you deliver a legal budget. Now, as leader of the council, my role and the role of Councillor Clark and the rest of all 72 of us is to deliver that legal budget. And that's what we did. We delivered a budget, a council that was facing a potential 114. And now, looking at the most recent budget figures, could well have £60 million in its reserves by 2030. That's an amazing turnaround. And it's been done by being sensible and having grown up politics. And in a position where there is no overall control, that's what you have to do. So I have to accept some proposals from the Lib Dems that, as Councillor Phipps has alluded to, we didn't want that. But it was one of their priorities. Just like there could be any priorities from the Labour group, or the Black Country Party, or the Reform group, it's about being sensible, sitting around the table. And as we'll see later on with the notice of motions, it is about all 72 of us trying to find a compromise where we can move some of these issues forward. And I believe that's what we did last year, Mr. Mayor, in the budget. So, is it something our group supported? No, but we had to deliver that budget last year. And to consider where we were 12 months ago to where we are now, this is a very different council. It's one that doesn't have those financial constraints that we had 12 months ago, which again is why when we get to the notice of motions later, we may be able to deliver something that is actually good across the political divide and certainly good for right across the borough. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hawley. All agreed? That is carried. Notices of motion. Can I remind members that the maximum time allowed to deal with all notices of motion at this meeting is 30 minutes. If any notices of motion are not dealt with within this period, they will be referred to the next ordinary meeting of the council, which at the moment I believe is around about March. Yep, okay. Moving on to the Black Country flag. I call on Councillor Pete Lowe to move the motion in his name as set out on the agenda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. After listening to the last 15 to 20 minutes of disagreement between the national parties, hopefully what we will see is the unification around the Black Country flag. I don't tend to take too long to what I think, pick up the point that the Leader of the Council made about where we can actually find a unifying message and a unifying flag. Many of us will recollect, Mr. Mayor, back in 2012 when Gracie Shepherd designed the Black Country flag, and then 2 years later when I write or somebody writes my obituary, hopefully they will include the fact that this council adopted both the Black Country flag and indeed incorporated the Black Country Festival as part of that. At that point, Mr. Mayor, not necessarily a unifying flag. There were people of all political persuasions and none who had concerns around the nature of that flag. Certainly when I was Leader of the Council and the Labour group were, we then moved that on to a flag that moved to Glastonbury, up to Mount Everest, lasted longer in the Football World Cup than the English football team, and saw that flag become the best-selling regional flag in the country. And I think it's a message of all of us within this council chamber that when the political colours changed, the sentiment continued, that the festival continued to go from strength to strength. The flag continued to be flown not just by our football teams and our other sporting teams, but by our local businesses as well, because they saw the impact, the positive impact that it could have upon our community and for their businesses. Now, Mr. Mayor, when this motion was first put forward back in May, the concern was one of our national parties had a very particular view with regard to county flags. The reason it still remains relevant is that the Black Country flag is a regional flag. And whilst I'm sure most of us and our political parties in this chamber would be quite clear on that, I think we do need clarification of all around regional flags and what they can do. From a personal point of view, I'm a passionate believer, as many of you will know, that the Black Country flag should be one of many flags that are allowed to be put outside our council chamber when it represents the interests of the community that we wish to serve. I note there will be an amendment put forward later, and certainly the Black Country Party will be very proud to accept and support that amendment. So hopefully, Mr. Mayor, this flag again will demonstrate to everybody listening or watching this its unifying nature, that it is way above any party
politics. This is a flag that brings us together and one that we wish, Mr Mayor, to continue to proudly fly whenever we can from our appropriate buildings. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Is there a seconder?
Formally seconded, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any speakers on this item? Sorry, I think we've already done that, haven't we? The motion will now be... Are there any speakers on this item? We've got Councillor Alex Dale down on the screen.
There we go. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to bring an amendment to the motion. Very proud to bring this amendment as one of a few openly gay councillors that sit in this hall. There's just one slight change that I would like to bring. Throughout the year, there are many causes where the council doesn't need to spend any money, but can show solidarity through the flying of such a simple thing as a flag. In the days of divisive politics, I would hope that it would get the full support of everybody in this house. So I move to bring the amendment that obviously this includes all flags, not just the Black Country flag, such as the Pride flag. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there a seconder?
Yes, seconded, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. I now call on
We will now debate the amendment. There's any speakers? Councillor Sean Keys.
Councillor Sean Keysy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't know what to say here, because if I truly believe that this amendment was to protect the interests of the LGBT community, I would support it, but it isn't. It's an amendment that's been put forward to try and put me in an awkward position. And I will very clearly say that whatever you vote for tonight, you vote for. I, because of the party I represent, will not be voting against this amendment, but I also won't be voting for it. For those reasons, you can ooh all you want, Councillor Harley, but to me, you either support LGBT rights or you have a laugh in the council chamber who look at the position we put Councillor Keysy in. You embarrass and try and catch out a member of the LGBT community. So let me ask you this, Councillor Dale. Let me ask you this. Zip up and listen. Where were you at International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia and Transphobia back in May when Dudley commemorated? Where were you? Okay, where were you at Dudley Pride this year? Okay, because I've never seen any evidence other than tonight of you showing any interest.
Councillor Keysy, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can you speak to the Mayor, please?
Yes, sorry, Mr Mayor.
Instead of holding a separate conversation with another
Yeah,
councillor.
thank you, Councillor Turner. Yes, thank you, Councillor Turner. You, sorry, Mr Mayor, through you, Councillor Bradley, who's got the audacity to stand up and second this motion, cancelled International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia and Transphobia last year because it wasn't cost effective. Councillor Dale, Councillor Bradley are hypocritical, and that's the end of it from my point of view. On the point, this is going to go through, I know it is, I can't stop it, but Councillor Lowe, on the point of your motion, I would have supported it and Reform UK would have supported it wholeheartedly. Unfortunately, in the position that we're in, we can't vote against it, but we can't vote for it now. Thank you, Mr Mayor, if this amendment is agreed to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keysy. Councillor Harley.
I wasn't going to speak on this to coin the phrase from previous leaders, but I can't resist coming in there, Mr Mayor. The brass neck of Councillor Keysy. It's all about me. All about me. The brass neck, Mr Mayor. The Ida Hobbit event was cancelled due to financial constraints. His new party wouldn't fly the pride flag, wouldn't have an Ida Hobbit event on the grounds of ideology. That's the difference. That's the difference, Mr. Mayor. Ideology, that party cancels events, refuses to fly flags, and we've seen the evidence up and down the county councils that they got control of last May. We've seen evidence.
Live from the leader of the Conservative group. Before he paid, I've never said anything of the sort.
Do you mind? Thank you. And the reason he can't support this, Mr. Mayor, is because Uncle Nigel and Uncle Marco have probably said, don't vote for it. Because if he is a proud gay man and he's always telling us that he is, then he should be supporting this amendment. Not saying, oh, he's placing me in a difficult spot, Mr. Mayor. He should vote for it. Search for your conscience and do the right thing.
There's no more speakers, so we'll vote on the amendment.
Okay.
That's it.
Right, we'll now vote on the amendment.
Yeah. If everybody could cast their votes, please, on the amendment.
After the vote on the amendment.
After the vote on the amendment. Apologies, Councillor Lowe. Yes, you have the right to reply before we vote. Sorry, my apologies.
Accepted. I will be very brief. Firstly, with regard to the amendment, and I do not only support the amendment, I'm extremely proud to support the amendment and thank the councillor for bringing it forward, because I think it builds absolutely on the fact that we as a council should be saying unanimously and clearly that we are proud to fly the flags of not just the Black Country, but those flags that represent so many people in our communities. So I'm proud to accept that. I think it's an issue for myself, not about the personalities within this council chamber, but it's around the principle behind that. All of us, I'm sure, believe in a tolerant, inclusive community and society. Most of us in this council chamber are here directly electing our people that represented us in there. Certainly from the Black Country Party, we are free from any national control that may lead to amendments or different things coming on. And we may see a little bit of that a little bit later on as well. So I'm proud to accept the amendment, and I'm proud to move that amendment to the vote, Mr. Mayor, with my support.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. The motion will now be put to the vote.
The amendment will now be put to the vote. The amendment, sorry, councillors. The amendment will now be put to the vote. If everybody could cast their votes. Then we go back to the motion, sorry. It's passed.
Okay, thank you. That is a yes. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, we now vote on the substantive motion, including the amendment. So if you'd like to cast your votes again for due process.
Yeah.
Apologies, Councillor Phipps. I thought we'd had the debate on the amended motion. On the original motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe once we have voted on an amendment, the debate then returns to vote to then debate on the amended motion before we then vote on the amended motion.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor.
Maybe nobody does want to debate.
No.
But
You're
yeah.
absolutely right, Councillor Phipps. So now we move on to the debate on the amended motion, on the substantive motion. Councillor Hilary Bills. Councillor Hilary Bills.
Councillor Hilary Bills, yep. poised and ready for action.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to say, I think we've forgotten where the black country. There we are. I'm the right colour. I'm red. There you go. Right. But I think we've also forgotten where the Black Country flag came from. I'm actually a Black Country person through and through. I've lived here for 55 years, even though I wasn't born here. And I've always been proud of where I come from and where I work. I've spent, some of you know, I spent 4 years travelling the world. And when I went, we hadn't got a Black Country flag. I wish we had. I wish we had when I did that, 2004 to 2008. But it took a conversation, Mr. Mayor, in my car park at school. I had decided not to keep my Metro MG. I love my Metro MG, but unfortunately the boot wasn't big enough, so I got myself a Renault. I forget what it was now. But anyway, it was a Renault, it was bigger. And on my governing body, I had the managing director of Malcolm's electroplating and powder coating. And I turned to him and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Lee, I've gone and bought a French car." And he said, "Hilary, there's as much of my business in that Renault as in that Metro." And it got me thinking, and when I visited his factory, I found there isn't anywhere in the world that somewhere is a bit of the Black Country, whether it's a ship, a railway line, a submarine. I can tell you now, as the mayor, I spent ages listening to where things were being made, where are they going, a submarine being built in Australia. So we should be so proud of ourselves. And so when I came back after being the president, I did actually spend my time saying to teachers who were coming to work at that time, it was Sandwell for me, you should be proud. The world would not move without us. And the biggest thing that I don't think people realise, we talk about the anchor at Netherton. Well, actually, the only place the Royal Navy will accept an anchor is a Black Country one. Because at Solid Swivel with Luke Perry, they do the top and the bottom, and then it has to come in walking distance from my house at Summers, and they put the shaft on and join it together. We should be so proud of who we are now. And I just love this flag because I have taken it around the world. There's a lot of me on photographs around the world. And I've just said we should be proud. And so when we came to this motion, I totally agree with you, Councillor Lowe. We should talk ourselves up, not talk ourselves down. But while we're doing that, we mustn't forget everybody else. We mustn't forget, I brought my rainbow flag. There are plenty of photographs of me draped in this. I have never been draped in one of these, but I have supported England at football. So all I can say is this, I think it's ended up, this amended motion, a really good one that should put a little foot in our step and make us realise we should be proud of being in the Black Country and being from Dudley.
Thank you, Councillor Mills. I do have...
Is there a second?
Oh, is there a seconder?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. I've also got Councillor Priest.
Just through you, Mayor, just to clarify with members. So, Councillor Harley has put forward a vote, and that's been seconded. So, therefore, there will need to be a vote to move to the vote. So, if members can firstly vote upon that, and then thereafter, if that is passed, then we will immediately move to the final vote for the motion as amended.
Yeah, we will now move to the vote.
Just through you, Mayor, just to clarify, so that has now been passed, so therefore there will be a right reply for the original mover of the motion, and thereafter we will move immediately to the vote.
Councillor Lowe?
Thank you very much. Yeah. I waive my right of reply.
Motion as amended.
As amended,
The motion
the motion will now be put to the vote.
as amended.
As amended. A lot of amendments going on tonight. No. That is carried. Right, protecting local pubs. I call on Councillor Steve Edwards to move the motion in his name as set out in the agenda. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully we'll have time to get through this motion. So pubs have been at the heart of working class communities in the Black Country for hundreds of years. They are more than just places to drink. They are centres of celebration, conversation, remembrance and community. I believe they should be celebrated for their cultural and historical importance and officially recognised as community assets. The full motion sets out the measures the Council will take to help save and support hospitality industry in Dudley, and has been published and delivered to all the councillors. But in short, it aims to recognise pubs for their community and cultural importance, protect, sorry, I ain't got my glasses, promote the concept of assets of community value so we can give pubs greater protection. We'll also ask the council to amend its non-domestic rate relief policy to allow pubs to claim discretionary rate relief so we can lower their business rates to help them survive. And then finally, for the Leader of the Council to write to the Government on behalf of all party and elected members to call for the reinstatement of the 75% business rate relief that was removed by Keir Starmer.
Is there a seconder?
Formally seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Denning. No speakers. Are there any speakers on this item? Councillor Aston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wish to move an amendment to the motion, if I may. As Councillor Edwards has stated in his original motion, as he's outlined, pubs are far more than places just to buy a pint. They're the beating hearts of our communities, the warm, familiar spaces where friendships are formed, stories are shared, and people who might otherwise be isolated find company. Across our borough, pubs play an irreplaceable social, economic and cultural role which should be protected. But these vital institutions are under unprecedented pressure. When a pub closes its doors, we don't just lose a business, we lose a community hub and a cornerstone of local identity. And that's why I think this motion is greatly improved and strengthened if it's presented through the context of the English Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill currently making its way through Parliament. This bill gives councils and combined authorities greater powers over local economic development, planning, regeneration and community assets. If it's shaped correctly, it could allow councils like ours to do more to protect the pubs, clubs and high street businesses that bind our communities together. Stronger devolved powers to us should mean local ownership of pubs, shops and social hubs is far easier through the new community right to buy, greater influence over business rates and reliefs to help keep pubs viable, more say over planning decisions that affect community assets and more local control over regeneration funds to boost high street footfall and the ability to champion and protect pubs as part of our cultural and economic infrastructure. So all the stuff we should be welcoming. In a borough like ours, pubs have always been part of our story. They reflect our humour, our heritage and our resilience. Supporting them isn't nostalgia, it's a practical investment in community cohesion, local jobs and vibrant town centres. So just before I move my amendment, I believe been circulated, I would add, and I've said this before, motions only work when they attract cross-party support and avoid political point scoring. I understand the temptation to insert a dig at the government or the previous government, but we're not going to vote in favour of words which are clearly designed to provoke, however worthy the underlying intention of the motion. If you want motions to matter, they must unite this council around shared goals, not divide it with party political rhetoric. And therefore I move the Labour Group amendment which has been circulated and hopefully can attract cross-party support. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Aston. Is there a seconder?
Mr Mayor, I'd like to say a few words on it as well, if I can, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just following on from what Councillor Aston's set out there, I think it's obvious to all of us the important part pubs have and continue to play right across our communities. And I think we're extremely lucky here in Dudley to have some of the finest pubs you could ever hope to have a drink in, recognised not just across the Black Country or the West Midlands, but across the UK as well. So I completely agree that pubs have an extremely important part and have been an extremely important part of the fabric of communities in places like Dudley throughout history. You know, they're places to socialise, to celebrate, discuss a whole range of issues from football, work, family, politics, and generally put the world to rights, which I know is certainly what I do over a pint. But they're not just part of our culture and heritage, as Councillor Aston said there, and as as Councillor Edwards said. They're a really important part of our economy. They employ thousands of people, not just in Dudley, but across the West Midlands, and millions across the wider UK. I think there's also an important point, though, that I want to make, that I think we have to acknowledge that times are changing too, and have been, I think, certainly throughout my lifetime, in the way people view pubs and what they're used for, not only the pressure of running costs, but also the way people's habits have changed. And I think that's, undoubtedly happened, as I say, in my lifetime. So I think it's important that pubs have the help and support that they need, not just on the costs of doing business, but also the way they do business in terms of how they can change, how they can cater for new needs and what the public want to see out of them. Because I think lots of the public do really want to support their local pub and see them as real assets of the community. And we've seen success stories across the borough, and lots of councillors will have seen this in their own wards, where pubs that were on the brink of going out of business have done things differently, have changed the way they operate, and are now thriving. So I think that's a really important point that I wanted to make. So the amendment for me is about updating the motion, because we know lots of these motions can take a long time to hear, and things can change along the way. And I think this amendment from the Labour group is about ensuring that this council can make sure it links in with some of the good stuff that's going to be coming out nationally, and make sure that pubs right across this borough can benefit from some of that. So I formally second the motion, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor. Can we now debate the amendment? And I call on Brian Priest, Councillor Priest. Sorry.
Thank you. Only briefly, and actually an odd change of tact for me, because it's rare for me to stand up and speak of anything in favour of something the Labour group has put forward. And I should firstly put on record that I think the English Devolution Bill is an awful attempt to transfer power up, away from communities and up to much larger authorities. However, one of the few things that I think this Labour government is getting right is the work around the community right to buy, empowering communities, not necessarily in a political sense, but within their own community. So I am uneasy with the amendment, which I think alludes to support for the devolution bill as a whole, and so as a result my group will abstain, but the actions that it asks within the amendment I think are absolutely spot on and will tangibly help small businesses across the borough, particularly pubs.
The 30 minutes allowed to deal with all notices of motion has now expired. The remaining notices of motion will be referred to the next ordinary meeting of the council, and as far as I understand, that is in next March. So now we have questions from members under the Council Procedure Rule 11. In line with the Council Procedure Rules, the question time will involve a 30-minute time limit on sessions. The first 3 questions will be offered to the main opposition group leaders. The opposition group leaders are invited to ask 1 question each. Other members will then be invited to ask questions. If the 30 minutes time limit is reached, any further questions can be submitted in writing. The usual process for a 2 minute per question will apply. There will be no supplementary questions allowed. And can I remind Council that the purpose of this session for the members is to ask questions.
No supplementary.
So I now call on Councillor Adam Aston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand I've got 3 questions. I'm not going to ask them. I'm going to allocate my first question to Councillor Kasim Mughal, my second to Councillor Kathy Bayton, and my third to Councillor Shazna Azad. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, residents don't come to their councillors as a first resort. They come to us when the council has already failed to resolve their problem. By the time they reach us, they are frustrated and often at the end of their tether. Councillors across this chamber on all sides take on those concerns as casework, doing everything we can to get answers for our residents and find solutions. But in recent years, deep cuts to budgets and staffing have hollowed out the council's ability to deliver even the basics. We are now seeing unacceptable failures in housing repairs, pothole repairs, green care maintenance, and basic street scene services. And with the introduction of the My Dudley Councillor system, the scale of the problem is laid bare in front of us. Mr. Mayor, the data is damning. Since April this year, 841 of the 3,279 cases that councillors in this chamber of all sides have submitted, 841 remain unresolved. In the Environment Directorate, the average resolution time is 28 working days. In Housing and Children's, it's 31. And across these 3 directorates, 1 in 5 of just the closed cases dragged on for more than 8 weeks. But it gets worse. Half of the unresolved cases in environment have been open for 12 weeks or more. And across this chamber, there are around 150 cases left unresolved for longer than 6 months. 6 months of repairs waiting, 6 months of chasing answers, 6 months of residents left in limbo. These aren't just statistics. They represent families living in homes that require repairs.
Councillor, can I just interrupt there? Are you asking a question?
It's coming.
Okay.
Okay, I've got it. So I asked, how can residents have any confidence in this council when we can't get the basics right, or in some cases take half a year? And what immediate concrete changes will the leader make to ensure the case will get resolved in a timely manner?
Thank you for that. You just got over by 1 second there, so pretty well done. Can I now call on Councillor Bayton? Councillor Harley, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the whole point of these Q&A sessions is to ask the questions of the right people that really should be directed at the relevant cabinet member, who from conversations this week and presentations, I understand some work is already underway to improve the service level. So perhaps the relevant cabinet member can get up if you'll allow that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Councillor Pat Harley. Councillor Caulfield?
Councillor Lawrence.
Councillor Lawrence, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your question. We are aware there are some issues with the new My Dudley Councillor portal. I think there's some issues with staffing within the directorates answering some of the questions. I don't believe it's the technology, but we are having a review. You'll have been advised of that this week through Connected Councillor, so I would ask all members please respond to the questionnaire that's coming regarding that, and we will take that feedback on and see how we can improve the system.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Can I now call on Councillor Baton?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My question kind of builds on Councillor Mughals' question to yourself, Councillor Lawrence. And I'm going to start off out with my question first before I go into my the evidence. So we've had a session before full council today, which I went along to talk about the My Dudley site. And what I'm looking for from you is the assurance that you will take on board and report back to this council and ensure the improvements are made to the system that so desperately are needed. Benefits that will improve the whole experience for both residents and councillors. This week alone, I've had 2 constituents contact me about separate issues they have raised via My Dudley. One was 4 weeks ago, the other 2 weeks ago. Neither have heard anything and the works have not been completed. Now, when I talk about members using the system, as many will know, I am a complete technophobe, so you do have to bear that in mind with the comments I make. But if I find it, if it isn't a simple system for me to use, then there's an issue there. I believe that we've created something that really isn't user-friendly for members. If I have a complex piece of casework that involves more than one directorate or service, I can't link those pieces of casework. I have to do separate reports. That's time-consuming, and actually
Councillor Baton, you only have 23 seconds left for your question.
I've asked my question at the start, Balvinda. So I'm looking for assurance from yourself, Councillor Lawrence, that you will make the improvements necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baton. Can we now have Councillor Lawrence?
Yeah, Councillor Baton, you've got my assurance, 100%. That's why this review is happening. I've come into this post, I've seen what the system's like. I'm not happy with it myself. We've got a new group director who's just started in position. It's one of the first things I've tasked him with. So take part in the review. Let's get everybody's opinions on board, and then we can move the system forward. We're not getting rid of it. We've spent a lot of money investing in it, and the data that we're collecting is really good, but I appreciate some of the front end isn't as user-friendly as it could be. So please just give us your feedback. Myself and the director are looking at it, and I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Can I now have Councillor Azad?
Through the government's Best Start in Life programme, areas including Dudley have had the opportunity to strengthen early support around speech, language and communication through the delivery of sessions in our Family Hub network. This support is vital for children's development and for the detection of emerging SEND needs. However, due to staffing levels, these sessions currently hold a 3-month waiting list, a waiting list that is growing. Can the Cabinet member address why this early language offer has not been staffed adequately? Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Azad. Councillor Wayne Little, would you answer that question?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for the question and highlighting this. I absolutely agree with the premise that you've just described there. The early interventions and early help offered to our children is, without question, really important, especially, as you say, with the growing SEND issues that we've got around our children growing up and not getting that early identification and early support that they need. So it is absolutely key. With regards to the reasons why, the specific question about the funding of that there now, I'll get back to you around the details upon that there. I'm not particularly aware of the specifics that you're talking about as to where the funding is or isn't, but I'm happy to meet with you face to face. We'll have a talk about that, and with the Shadow Cabinet Member for Children's, and we can certainly look into your inquiry there and get you the answer that you need.
Thank you, Councillor Little. I now call on Councillor Ryan Priest. And just to remind you, have one question.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is either for Councillor Atkins or Councillor Clark. I'm not sure who's best placed. Years ago, well, before my time on the council, there was a motion passed here on a circular economy, which is a simple idea that the council should be commissioning services and using local businesses for the jobs it can't do itself. It seems over time that has fallen to the wayside and the council no longer follows that. But with a disaster of a budget for small businesses delivered last week in Westminster, is now the time not to support our small businesses in one of the most obvious ways we can and make sure that the council itself is using them. So could whichever cabinet member this does sit under confirm to us whether or not utilising small businesses within the Dudley Borough is still the case, and if when we're issuing contracts, are we issuing them at a scale that is small enough for small businesses to reasonably bid for? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Priest. Councillor Clark, to respond to that, please.
Thank you, Councillor Priest, for your question. I think the Dudley Pound is an important one, and I think we've looked into it over a number of years, making sure that the Dudley Pound is used more than any others. In terms of the procurement and the way that procurement is working for Dudley, we are looking into that Dudley Pound to make sure that is used as a priority in the area. So I'm with you 100% and making sure that local businesses are seen to first within our procurement process. But of course, larger contracts, we have to go to larger contractors to do it. But in terms of the smaller stuff, there's a lot of stuff that we can do for local businesses.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I now call on Councillor Pete Lowe.
Very much, Mr. Mayor. I'll get straight into the question so nobody interrupts me while I'm making the... do you recollect the council meeting of the 20th of October 2025? Got the question out of the way. You will remember that we passed during that discussion the motion around supporting sports clubs and institutions across the Dudley Borough. I'm just seeking a question for whoever it's appropriate to answer it, just if you've got any update as to when that working party will be set up and what plans are in train. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. I now call on
Councillor Atkins.
Councillor Atkins.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lowe. I'll take it because I think it was under the sports arena. Yeah, so we've got a new director started just in the last couple of weeks. I'll put it as one of our priorities for the meeting, and I'll make sure that he gets in touch with the relevant people. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I now call on Councillor Sean Kesey.
Mr. Mayor, you caught me on the hop because I actually realised I'm leader of a group. That's the first time that's ever happened in 8 years. And I was thinking, what do I ask? But I am going to go back to something that that was discussed earlier. And I'm going to ask a question of Councillor Bradley, the new superhero supporter of the LGBTQ+ community. I might get through something without a heckle, but there you go. That's just the way it is. Politics at the moment is not a nice place to be in. It's political parties that dominate rather than individuals and real issues, I think. But do you believe that? Yeah, thanks, Councillor Turner. I'll say it soon. Mr. Mayor, could you just pause my time, please? Because I am utterly fed up of being talked over and heckled by Councillor Dale. It's not fair and it's not funny.
It wasn't me. Point of order, thank you.
Well, can we all just calm down and just be...
I'm calm, Mr Mayor.
Just be respectful of the person that stood and speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll try and finish quickly. As I say, politics is a horrible place. Councillor Bradley, a question. You notice what ribbon I'm wearing in support of World AIDS Day? Councillor Aston's wearing the same ribbon as well. Do you think that people's protected characteristics should be used to criticise them personally or their politics? Do you believe that is acceptable, or do you think it should be condemned?
Councillor Bradley, call on Councillor Bradley to reply.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. We're going back to the Ida Hobbit discussion earlier, I believe. And at the time, the discussions were quite frequent on that one. And to be honest with you, the actual substance of why that was cancelled wasn't even brought up. It was about the amount of money that it was costing. It was around £10,000 at the time. It wasn't the only one that we stopped doing.
Councillor Keasley, Councillor Bradley has the right to reply. Councillor Bradley, would you like to stand up and answer the question that Councillor Keasley has asked you?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. And I was going to say, before I did answer the question, and Ida Hobbit will be back next year. I understand. It's not in my portfolio, but that's fine, because we're in a different place now. We've turned the big ship around. As to the politics of it, no comment. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. I now call on Councillor Tromans.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just for the avoidance of doubt, I will be asking a question, but I do have a little bit of a preamble before that, but I'm very much aware of the time in the corner. So one of the people who may be watching this exchange tonight is my mum. And I'm very proud to say that my mum's career was in care, both for early years and for older people. And in the course of her career, whilst working at a residential care home, she encountered an incident of shocking elder abuse. An older gentleman was dressed up as a lady against his wishes in order to humiliate him. And my question tonight is to the Cabinet Member for Children's Services, and it speaks to that same sense of injustice and ordinary people not knowing where to turn when they encounter things that are going wrong. So my question is, as long ago as March this year, the Council's Data Protection Manager identified a CCTV audio breach at the Children's Services Family Time Centre. Can you say, when the hundreds of individuals whose conversations were recorded without their knowledge or permission will be informed by the council, and when they will receive an apology?
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, this matter has been discussed outside of this meeting. As advised to the councillor asking the question, there is an ongoing investigation. We do not want to prejudice that ongoing internal investigation, and thereafter any questions that the councillor has will be addressed. We've also discussed the scrutiny mechanism being used, so therefore the appropriate questions will be addressed once that matter is concluded.
Thanks for that. Can I now call on Luke Hamlet, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll keep this quick as I've not had a lot of sleep this week. Speeding and racing on Quarry Road in my ward is getting worse and worse. The evidence of the effectiveness of noise cameras is overwhelming. Will Dudley Council be considering installing noise cameras in problem spots across the borough?
Councillor Phipps, you wish to answer that one?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor, for the question. Noise cameras are quite an interesting proposition that was put forward, and there was not not a consultation, a trial that was taking place across the country. I've seen conflicting reports about what is happening as a result of that trial. I've seen the MP for Hales Owen write to a government minister to ask why the trial isn't being continued, but then I've seen other press which might indicate that the trial is being continued. So it's a bit up in the air at the moment as to what we can do in Dudley. In order to make sure that, in order to do that, we will need the appropriate powers from the government. If we don't have those powers, it won't be legal for us to be able to do it. It's certainly an interesting prospect, and certainly when it comes to, you know, dealing with the types of, and I will use a phrase that might not necessarily be, you know, completely politically correct, but quite frankly, there's an epidemic of idiots on the road right now. It's really, really bad. It's got worse since the pandemic, and residents are absolutely at their wits' end with the popping exhausts and the out-of-control revving that we're getting in lots of places, not just in your ward, but across the whole borough. So anything that we can do in order to try and address that is definitely something that I'll definitely get the council to look into. But we also do need to make sure that we get the appropriate support from the police too, because when it comes to cameras or enforcement, or when it comes to just looking at the layout of our roads, you know, I don't subscribe to the theory that you can change every single road in the borough to suit these idiots in their cars because they'll find another road to go to. We need to actually start getting them off the roads entirely. And if the police help to get them off the roads entirely, I'd happily stand alongside them whilst they watch their car get crushed, to be quite frank, because we have to do something serious with this now. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Phipps. Can I now call on Councillor Casey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is for Councillor Phipps, and I'm sure he'll understand why I'm asking this particular question. I'm sure he will have seen, well, I certainly hope he will have seen the shocking article in the press at the start of last month, which highlighted Dudley as being at the centre of the UK's youth jobs crisis, with 1 in 5 16 and 17-year-olds now being classed as NEET, so not in education, employment or training, which is the highest rate in England. And this is down in large part due to difficulty in tracking the activities of some of those 16 and 17-year-olds, which means effectively they fell off the radar. Now, since that article was published, I've not seen any response from the council in terms of how they're going to go about trying to tackle this issue. So does he firstly agree with me that it's completely unacceptable, that we need to make this a #1 priority in terms of supporting young people across the borough and making sure they've got the help and support that they need? And can he set out what the plan is to address this urgently, particularly ensuring this council is able to meet its responsibilities and has the capacity and the capability to track young people and work with some of our partners to ensure they have the help and support they need, and what more we can do with external partners to bring them together to look at what we can do more collectively to ensure young people have the help and support, and this is the best borough for young people. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Phipps, do you wish to respond?
Yeah, happy to. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for the question. It's an absolutely important question to raise here, and there's lots of multifaceted parts of the question which I will offer to have a conversation with you. I think your experience with the day job will be really helpful to help get me fully up to speed also with everything that the Combined Authority is doing in this area. We work very closely with the Combined Authority, and the new director that has just been appointed to this area has a background in economic regeneration and development, and so her expertise will be really, really invaluable in addressing these points. I wouldn't say that the statistics that we saw in that particular report is a reflection of what is being done by this council. I think it's a reflection of wider socio-economic issues that we have in the Dudley Borough. I will take the opportunity to highlight the work that's done by the adult education team working with the 18+ cohort, trying to get them into work and education, and they've had some extremely good outcomes working with younger people. There's been money that has come through the Combined Authority that has been directed towards that age group as well, in particular in people from backgrounds that might have more unemployment within those backgrounds as well. So there's a wealth of things that I know is happening. I'm very happy to sit down with you, and as a bit more of a subject matter expert in this area, I think you'll be very, very invaluable to developing that work. So happy to sit down, let's get in front of the officer team and we'll have that conversation, and hopefully we'll be able to identify even more things that can be done on top of what's happening so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Phipps. Can we now, Steve Edwards?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mine is probably to Councillor Phipps as well, but it's more of an observation for the whole chamber, really. I know, obviously, with the update to the Constitution that we've got going on, there's a lot of new procedures being brought in. I'm a little bit worried that, I don't know if there's anybody in here today, but I'm a little bit worried that we look a bit farcical in here at times. Like, none of us seem to really know what's going on when we're in the chamber. Now, obviously, the model of what we run by should be quite simple, like with seconders and replies and stuff like that. Would it be worth maybe looking at some form of training and maybe even mock sessions within here? So for the public to see us going forward, we at least know what we're doing when we sat in the chamber, even if they disagree with what I'm doing outside the chamber.
Councillor Clark to reply to that. Councillor Phipps, you're going to reply first.
If that's possible, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor. Thank
Carry
you.
on.
Yeah, so technically the legal aspects of the Constitution fall within Councillor Clark's portfolio, but as a nerd, I offered to kind of help lead the project. So in terms of trying to, come to a position where we can update the Constitution, in particular, the bit that you're referring to, which is the rules of procedure for how meetings are run. We had a very in-depth session with a group of people who helped write the original Constitution that our Constitution is based on. And one of the things that the members in that room highlighted with them and the member of the legal team that is still working on the project was a need for training in this particular area to make sure that meetings were run efficiently. We're not going to get everything right all of the time. It's a very, very difficult job, and I'm always very quick to say, oh, point of order, or actually, no, we should be doing this, that, or the other. Maybe I should take into account what it's like being in the hot seat. So I definitely think that we do need to do the training on that, and I'll happily ask Councillor Clark to have a chat with the legal department to start working on that. And I know that there are future sessions of a Constitution working group to look at matters beyond the scheme of, not the scheme of delegation, the rules of procedure. So that is also something that all members will be able to input into. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Phipps.
Yeah.
Just following on from what Councillor Phipps is saying, I want to ensure that it's not a direct attack on the Mayor that I'm saying. It's more for the whole chamber, for us all to be better at what we're doing, not one person or another. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards, for that point. Thank you, Councillor Edwards, for that point of clarification. Mr. Mayor, the monitoring officer just wants to come in on an earlier point, just to clarify.
Yeah, just through you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to draw upon, in terms of this particular debate and the question that was put forward from Councillor Kesey, and that falls into the point that's just been raised in terms of the education to members, in terms of raising questions and that overall understanding. So in terms of that question that was posed by Councillor Kesey, that was actually not within scope of the standing orders, because what the standing orders require is that questions must relate to a matter for which the council has powers or duties. That particular question was more drawing upon an opinion in terms of Councillor Bradley. So I do think that's an important point just to clarify and ensure going forward that questions are posed appropriately to Cabinet members and within scope of the standing orders.
The 30 minutes allowed now for questions has now expired. Any members indicating to ask questions can either send it in writing or raise the question at the next appropriate meeting. There's no more urgent business. Thank you all for your attendance this evening. Before we conclude, hello, I haven't finished yet. Can we sit down, please? Thank you. Before we conclude, I would like to place on the record my thanks and appreciation for the hard work undertaken by all members of the employees of the council during that, which we've been very challenging year. I think we can all agree on that. Can I wish everyone a happy Christmas and a peaceful, prosperous New Year.